here joined with a third-year student from our insect biology program, Sydney Torito, and we're going to talk about how you distinguish all of the catch from your wing trap in your high tunnel and identify the tomato pinworm adults. So the first thing you want to do is take that sticky card out of the wing trap and place it into a large plastic bag so that you can look at the specimens on the top without getting yourself all sticky. And then we just want to give this sort of a broad search and look for the size of the tomato pinworm adult. And so that size, the adult body length, is between 3 to 5 millimeters.
Right, and now we're going to discuss some of the process before the actual dissection of the tomato pinworm moths. So normally when we get these sticky boards from the traps, it's important to take a look at what could potentially be a tomato pinworm moth. When you're comparing insects on these sticky boards, looking for a moth that's about this size, it's normally relatively small. Sometimes you'll find moths that are a little bit bigger, such as one here. But these are very clearly too large and as such are not tomato pinworms. Additionally, sometimes you can get I've gotten a little bit confused in the past looking at small flies or small beetles such as this one that may look a little bit like tomato pinworms since some of them come in really dark colors. And so if you're a little bit confused and not quite sure if it's a tomato pinworm or not, I find it worthwhile to cut it out anyways and take a look at it just to be sure. And it's important to note that sometimes the pinworms can be a little bit lighter in color, kind of like a grayish brown mottled wings like this, or they can be kind of a darker brown color like this. And so now what I like to do is I go in with a pair of scissors. They don't have to be like really nice scissors or anything. They can just be like kitchen scissors, anything that's kind of like industrial strength. And I cut up the sticky board. I try and get as close to the moth as I can. And kind of like a square shape, taking care not to cut any parts of the actual moth. After you have cut out your potential pinworms, they should look a little something like this.
There are a few other moth species that are similar in size and look the same from the outside. So the reason we have to take them to the microscope and dissect their genitalia, so pull the abdomen off, is to verify that in fact they are tomato pinworm. One of the other and most common insects in Indiana that you may encounter is potato tuber worm, and the only way to tell these two apart is by going through this process.
Now that we have all of our specimens cut out from the sticky board, we can start to dissect them. I normally like to use 2 pairs of forceps when I dissect, but if you can find tweezers at the store, those will also work just as well. I like these because they're very precise, and because moths are so delicate, sometimes if you're not careful, you can like rip off the part of the bug that you're trying to like use to identify them with. So when I go in, I like to hold down the piece of the sticky board with my forceps, and then with the other one, I peel up. This is all of the kind of wing bits. So I kind of try to like get them off. And there you go. This piece right here, I'm gonna set this down. You can kind of see it here. It's not super clear, but that kind of shape is what you're looking for. This is another example of a potential tomato pinworm, and already you can see that without even pulling up the plastic or dissecting any of the abdomen, that it's a tomato pinworm. And you can tell because it has these very distinctive horned genitals. Here is a lighter colored variation of the tomato pinworm. Yeah, now you have a pretty clear view of that paddle. that's right there. Let me see if I can get a little bit closer. Peel that kind of backwards. Oh, come on. There we go. There we go. And there you can see where it like kind of goes in, gets closer together before it comes back out.
Here we've given you a sneak peek inside of how we do the diagnostic process when we have a new species that we have to become familiar with. So the example we showed you today, the tomato pinworm, Keiferia lycopersicella, is a new to Indiana insect pest in our tomato production systems. So initially it's very important that we do these species diagnoses with the genital dissection to be sure that we can update global database records on the distribution and incidence of this insect around the world. Once you become familiar, and the more that we have deployed these sticky traps with the pheromone-baited lures throughout the state, we have found that 99.9% of the time it is this insect pest. Occasionally we find some that are a bit larger that we initially confused, but once you become familiar, like I said, with the size alone, you should be able to identify and monitor the population within your growing system. If you ever need assistance or want to help us with the species verification, you can always send the sticky board itself with the specimens attached to the Purdue Plant and Pest Diagnostic Lab, where we can generate official records verifying the identification and the location of this insect to be able to update our databases. But for practical senses, just deploying the sticky boards and the pheromone trap will be enough for you to be able to monitor for this insect in your cropping system.